Hello, the co-creators, co-creative destiny weavers, like the name of this community. Yeah, like some of you might have noticed, Fridays I've got like the space, opening up the space for blooming, spreading the wings, and the natural cycle which we travel through each week. From grounding on Monday, then Tuesday setting down the roots, then leaving comfort zone, facing and overcoming adversity, and then blooming, spreading our wings, and then Saturday spreading the seeds. Those are also the chapters in my book, The Wyrding Way. If anybody is interested, I can send you the link. And Fridays, since it's for me blooming and spreading your wings, it's also the day of Freya for freedom and just shining in our full potential. That's why I like to choose this day to share wise stories. My nickname, Airy Fairy Flowery. Airy short term for Erika, Flowery, fairy for fairy tales, wise stories, and flowery because I love flowers and blooming. It's all about shining our light and sharing our gifts and our genius. And since I increasingly observe worldwide like divisions and fears between people, I thought this story is a good story because it's about spreading cuddles instead of like cold shivers. That's how it's called in German, die Schmusegeschichte from this book, translated The Colors of Reality. Long time ago, people were much happier and satisfied than they are nowadays. Back then, everybody was sharing love and cuddles just freely and openly with an open heart. And every time when somebody was born, they were given a little like this. They were giving a little bag full of cuddles, with the intention that they can give those cuddles away to anybody as widely and as openly as possible. And everybody was asking for these cuddles, because everybody who received this cuddle was feeling good and happy and loved. And when somebody was receiving not enough cuddles, then it happened that they became ill, and that's why the cuddles were spread totally freely. And it was very easy to receive cuddles back in those days. Every time when somebody was feeling like having a cuddle, they were just going to the next person and asking for it, and they received it straight away. And they were just taking those cuddles from their bags and just shared it everywhere. And it was possible, for example, to take out a cuddle and put it like on the shoulder if it was hurting, and the hurt disappeared straight away. So the people asked a lot of times for the cuddles. And because they were spread so freely and widely, there was no problem at all to receive those cuddles. So the people felt very good most of the time. And they felt happy and laughed. Until one day, a bad witch got very angry about it. Because she had many prepared medicine resources, which she was then not able to sell to people. Since nobody was really ill, she didn't get anything from her resources, and that's why she was so angry. Thus, she started to tell people that their cuddles would run out very shortly and that they need to be very scarce and careful who they give the cuddles to. And slowly people started to keep the cuddles inside and for themselves, and thinking very closely who to give the cuddles to and who not. And some people started to be like envious about some other people who received more cuddles than them. And they got angry and judgmental. And those people who shared their cuddles widely started to just keep them just the closest to the family, and started to be fearful at spreading it to more people than the closest one. And the children learned very quickly from the parents. They recognized that it was apparently wrong to give the cuddles freely to everybody. And even though everybody still had more than enough cuddles in the bags, they took them out more and more rarely. And the consequences were horrible. Less and less people received cuddles and love, which they needed. And they started to feel lonely and unhappy and ill. Some of them even died from scarcity of love. And the bad witch was now able to sell lots of her medicine. But the people did notice that they were not really helping after a while. And the bad witch also didn't want that the people died, because she still wanted to make some profit from her medicine. So she invented something else. She invented shivers, like cold shivers instead of loving cuddles. And those shivers looked exactly like the cuddles, but they didn't give the people a loving and warm feeling, but instead a very cold feeling. But at least the people didn't die from them if they would not receive anything at all. So what happened now is that when people wanted to receive cuddles, some people gave them instead those cold shivers from the bags. And sometimes when people were approaching others to receive cuddles, they got very disappointed because instead they only received cold shivers. So even though people didn't die when instead they received those cold shivers, the relationship became colder and bitter and very disappointing. And the cuddles became very, very worthwhile and expensive. And parents were telling their children to be very careful with them and were treating it like it was gold, not to give away. And couples became jealous of other couples who had received more cuddles than them. And children were started to be jealous of cuddles which they didn't receive from the parents. And as in earlier times, many people came together to just share the cuddles freely. Now everybody was just closing themselves off and keeping to themselves. And we're just jealous, more and more jealous, and judgmental. And sometimes, if by mistake somebody was giving away their cuddles to somebody else and became very ashamed and scared that maybe somebody in their family or the partner would carry a grudge about it. And some people even started to buy cuddles from others because they were not receiving it from their partners or family. Some people even started to work overtime to receive even the little cuddles. Somehow some people were even more lovable and received more cuddles than others. And therefore they started to sell the extra cuddles to others. And some people who thought that they were especially clever, they gathered some cuddles together and started to sell them as cold shivers because they were very, very cheap. And they were like lying that they were like instead cuddles in the bag. And I started to imitate cuddles and started to sell them just as pure plastic without any love and warmth. And thus the problems started to rise more and more and more. And even though people bought into those artificial plastic cuddles, which gave them a feeling of emptiness and not being satisfied, they still got like addicted to always long for the real cuddles, giving out lots of money for it, and getting addicted to constantly go out there and trying to receive cuddles. And a lot of people actually died eventually because they used up too many plastic cuddles, artificial cuddles, instead of the real ones. And about those addicted people, the normal people got angry, but they were not able to eliminate those artificial cuddles, because this longing for love of the true cuddles just remained. And it happened more often than not that when two people met to exchange love cuddles, they only received artificial cuddles. And the feeling remained of distrust and loneliness. So straight away, they bought some new ones to upload on the feeling of love, but the vicious circle continued and continued. That most of the time, only the artificial, like the shivers, were spreading, and the real colors of love remained more and more rare. In general, there was so much chaos and distrust between the people. And hardly nobody remembered how I used to be in the past. And all this just happened because the bad witch was telling them that there were not enough loving cuddles around. And most recently, a woman appeared who seemingly has never heard of the bad witch. And she didn't even worry about how much loving cuddles she was giving away, and started to just let it spread around. And she was called the hippie woman. The adults at the beginning were very angry when they observed that, because she was giving the children the impression that there was more than enough of love cuddles available. But the children just magically were drawn to this woman. And more children learned that there were indeed enough cuddles in all the bags. Even though the more grown-ups were already bitter and closed in their hearts, their children continued to spread the loving cuddles. And the adults who got so angry about that even put up a law which forbids to spread these loving cuddles. And they were thinking that they were actually protecting the children to spread the cuddles so freely. Luckily, not all children lived after this law. And also some of the adults started to remember the time before those cold shivers and artificial cuddles got introduced by the bad witch. They started to remember that loving cuddles were there in abundance once upon a time. Will we start to remember and to spread the loving cuddles as freely as before? So let's start today to grab our cuddles of love and to spread them widely. I actually read this story at some birthday children parties in the past, and invited the children to sew their own little bags and cutting out the hearts inside, and inviting them to spread laugh as widely as possible. I think this is a nice exercise for us adults as well, and maybe even like a little present. Yeah, so let's spread love and love cuddles out of our bags instead of division. Many blessings to you. Have a lovely Friday, free day, every day, and lots of love in always, always. Lagadaru.